Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the CATS live stream, the Curriculum and Technical Support team for the Career Choices curriculum and mytenureplan.com. How are you doing today, Brooke?
I am good. How are you, Chris?
Very good. Good to see you again. So, welcome back. I know last week was kind of strange with the mask on and not being able to talk very well, but we're ready to go today. So, 3 reasons you should stay today. We have a new LinkedIn article from our author, Mindy Bingham. So, we want to highlight that a little bit. We also want to have a discussion today on mentors, how important it is for students to have mentors, especially honest mentors as they're researching their careers. And number 3, we are also going to be talking about making connections and how important that is as you are building your career. So hopefully you'll stay. Make sure to introduce yourself in the comments and ask questions anytime you want, and we'll see those comments and those questions pop up live.
Yes. So, we are going to have a lot of fun today. Connections is something that seems to be kind of prevalent in our culture right now, right?
Yes.
So I'm really excited for this conversation. I've been doing a lot of thinking about it, and it's something that's going to be a lot of fun. But first, let's go to our newsletter.
Yes. So as we mentioned, Mindy's article it's mentioned in the newsletter. It's the resource of the week. So we won't go into too much detail on it because we want you to go and read it. But you'll see the title there, 3 Tips to Help Teens Plan for a Hopeful Future. So make sure you go check that out. Connect with Mindy on LinkedIn as well. She is loving all the people who are finding her and connecting with her. That way you can get up to the, what's the word I'm looking for? Up to the minute notifications on when she writes new articles or posts new information. Anything you want to say about this article, Brooke?
There was a lot of good stuff in this article. So I can actually pull the screen down, Chris, if you want to show a better copy. But this article, I really liked how it talked about connections, actually, ironically enough.
Yeah.
Talked about making sure that to be able to instill hope in your kids, you have to be able to have that connection with them, and that you had to be able to have them connect with themselves.
Yes, especially with the lack of connection that has been happening due to COVID. So just how important it is to get those connections established again.
Yeah, so it is it's a good read. Definitely take a minute, go check it out. And we are going to also mention today, if you're not aware, we do have a in-person training opportunity coming up.
Yes, finally
Very
back
important.
to in-person workshops and institutes.
So make sure that if your administrator has not been to an in-person workshop, recommend this to them. Super important. And then we also have the Teams event as well. So a lot of opportunity. We're not back full force with all of our trainings in person yet, but this is a really big step.
Yes, yes. So make sure to check out the details in the newsletter. Both of these institutes will take place in Santa Barbara in June. So it's a pretty good place to be that time of year.
Yes, and I just realized that I was not sharing my screen. So I'm going to show you the image that I was looking at. So definitely take an opportunity to look at this. And the other thing that I wanted to mention, we have officially started our middle school interviews. And I think we've got some really good medal candidates so far. But if you don't know what I am talking about, please take the time to email Chris or I, and we would love to let you know what that means. And we're just going to leave you hanging there.
Yep, sounds good.
So Spencer made a comment about Mindy's article. He said that he liked how the article encouraged people to be self-aware in a few different ways. Yes, exactly. I loved that about this.
Yeah, definitely. And it kind of matches the format of the Career Choices series curriculum. So having students become more self-aware and how it lines up with the three main questions we ask in the curriculum: who am I, what do I want, and how do I get it? So yeah, very good point, Spencer. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yes. And just in case you want it, Spencer has put the link to the newsletter in the comments, and we will put it in again with our big old chunk of links at the end. So make sure you go check out the newsletter. And when I put the links in, we will also have a link to sign up for the newsletter. So take advantage of that.
Okay, shall we move into the meat of the live stream today?
I think so. So today we are going to be talking about a really, really tiny activity in chapter 11 or 14, depending on which textbook you're using. If you need a good walkthrough of which textbook to use, we did that on our live stream 2 weeks ago. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
But so I'm not going to do that again today. But in this activity, it talks about making connections, and it talks really heavily about mentors and how important it is to find people who can help you as you're discovering all of these things about yourself, finding people who are further down the road from you who can assist you as you try to go down that road. So I when we were going through and looking up which activities we wanted to do for this week, this was one that just hit both of us, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
So one of the things about this activity, though, is it is not it's covered in the online class agendas, but it is not like specifically discussed in the online class agendas. So while this content is covered, there's not a specific place where you can go look at it in the online class agendas. However, if you don't know what the online class agendas are, please go to the Teacher's Lounge. They're on the front page, or email Chris or I, and we will let you know.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit strange today, not walking through one of the online class agendas, but
yeah,
it's a really, really helpful resource. Like Brooke said, if you don't know what it is, let us know. We'll definitely be glad to show that to you.
So we are going to start with the suggestions from the instructor's guide. And one of the things that it listed in here is having the students get into groups and talking about their experience with either mentors or having been a mentor. A lot of these students have actually already had opportunities to be able to do that.
Yeah, and they don't even realize it. But yeah, especially older siblings, and kind of get their brain thinking about how they've helped younger siblings in a mentor sort of situation. That's a very natural place to start when you're trying to get students to think about being a mentor.
Absolutely. And so one of the things that we were discussing when we were planning this is actually an experience that Chris had.
Yes.
As he was looking at his career path, I guess. Do you mind sharing that with everybody,
Yeah,
Chris?
no problem at all. So I don't know if I've mentioned it here on a live stream before, but I used to be an elementary school teacher. And so the way that all started was heavily influenced by a mentor in my life. So when I was a senior in high school, I had the opportunity to be a camp counselor, and it was for the sixth graders in our district. And so we were divided. We had to apply to become a counselor. We were divided up among the different schools, the elementary schools in the district. And so this one particular school, who went to the camp the week that I was one of the counselors, I just fell in love with this group of kids. Like, it was so fun to be their mentor at the camp and help them with anything they needed. And I really loved how that made me feel helping these students. And so one of the teachers at the school said, you should come volunteer in one of the classrooms. And she even said, you can come and volunteer in my classroom. I would love it. And just see what it's like being a teacher, see if that's something that you would be interested in. And so I took that opportunity, and she walked me through almost everything involved with being a teacher as a senior in high school. I was able to go in and surprise the kids. First of all, they had no idea this was happening. So walked into the classroom, and they were just so thrilled to see me again. So that made me feel pretty good. But this teacher let me take over some of the lessons. She got permission from her principal, so she wasn't going rogue or anything. But I was able to teach math lessons and language arts lessons. I was able to grade essays and math homework. I was able to kind of be a tutor one-on-one with some of the students who needed that. And so it really, really helped me get my toe into what it felt like being a teacher. And I ended up graduating with an elementary education degree from college, and I taught for about 5 years before I realized that it probably wasn't going to be the best fit for me for the rest of my life. But it, it was her help, her mentorship is what guided me down that path and let me see that that was going to be the perfect way for me to start my career life. So
That is so cool. And to have that opportunity that young is
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, I was very grateful for it. People were shocked when they heard what I was doing, and that she gave that opportunity to me. So I can't say enough about having good mentors.
Yeah. Spencer just asked a really good question. He says, how would you recommend that students get more experiences like that while still in high school? Connections,
Yeah.
taking the opportunity to volunteer for things, and then talking to people, connecting with people, building relationships.
Yes, and one thing that I love in the instructor's guide that it specifically says is this curriculum enables you to have many guest speakers come into your classroom. And so they're those guest speakers are already willing to come and share their knowledge, and so they would be the perfect people to also approach about being a mentor. So if a student really connects with these guest speakers, they can approach them, and more often than not, these guest speakers are willing to take these kids under their wing and be mentors for them. So I think that would be a very natural place to try to find some mentors while you're going through this curriculum.
Absolutely. And also making sure you have people and you talk to people in your community about hooking the students up for the job shadowing activity. That's one that they can potentially gain really great mentors from, because they're actually going and watching people on the job.
Yes.
So, yeah. And when I was younger, um, I had the opportunity to, they made up a position for me in a theater, but I was able to work with one of my professors in college. I was 17 at the time. And she offered me an assistant to the director position, which isn't something that actually exists in most places. But I was able to shadow her, and for the next 8 years, or more, I was sold on the idea of being a theater director. Like, I wanted to do that. Of course, the goal was to be on Broadway first and then direct, but um, having that opportunity to follow her around, and she actually has been one of the biggest influences in my life. I ended up moving to New York and working with her for a little while, and so that was really, really neat. But I met her through an educational opportunity. So
That's so great.
yeah,
It-
don't underestimate, as educators, don't underestimate your role in helping facilitate this. Even if you're not the right person to mentor these kids, can have a huge hand in connecting them up with the right person.
Yeah, that's so true. And more often than not, you'll see that most people in the community are very willing to share their skills and their knowledge because they want the younger generation to come up in their field. Or, think of it like a coach. A coach wants their athletes to get better and better and rise to that level of championship. Same thing with mentors in the community. They want young people coming into their field, their industry, and just getting better and better. So you'll see a lot of people in the community are willing to be mentors for your students.
Yeah, it makes such a difference. But also something to think about that was in the instructor's guide too is it talks about literature as a mentor.
Yes.
And so using, I just read Colin Powell's book, which was absolutely amazing. One of them, I've got the other one on hold. But as we were discussing this previously, one of the biggest influences in my life as a kid was actually C.S. Lewis. I didn't really know that because I didn't really pay attention to the author, but I've read the Chronicles of Narnia series at least 5 times in its entirety, and most of the books I've read closer to 12 to 15 times. And most of that was when I was from like 11 to 12 and I had nothing else to do with my life. But actually younger than that. But that was a huge mentor for me as far as morals and um the the way that he depicts relationships,
Hmm.
actually, not just the obvious religious 2x4s he has in the book, but if you really look at, he's an amazing author who has so many other nuances. um and I have to throw this up here because Spencer loved Narnia too. Woo-hoo. um yeah, but I seriously, that was one of the biggest mentors for me until I was older and got out of the house and started working with actual people that I could get to know and connect with on a personal level.
Yeah,
So,
and
go
oh,
ahead, sir.
sorry to interrupt, but yeah, just an extension from that. Um, have your students research even fictional books on certain topics that they're interested in that they might want to go into a career in that field, and then those authors can be mentors for them too in a more specific way, like a subject related. So
Yeah, yeah. I loved that section in the instructor's guide. But honestly, the best part about today and the part that I'm really excited to talk about is the possibilities.
yes.
So, this book, yes, thank you, Chris.
Yep.
Woo. So, Possibilities is our English language anthology. And there are 2 different activities that specifically relate to this activity. So, we've got a tiny little obscure activity, the last activity in chapter 11, but it's so important that there are 2 different sections in Possibilities that talk about it. So,
And they're both very powerful.
oh, honestly, some of the best so far.
Yep, I
I
agree completely.
they're amazing. So, would you like to start?
Sure. Yeah. So the first one is called The Bridge Builder by Will Allen. I hope I'm saying this right. Dromgoole. Kind of an interesting last name. I've never heard that one before seeing the Possibilities book many years ago. So yeah, The Bridge Builder. It talks about this older man and how there's a lot of metaphors in here. Like long, lonely highways, cold, gray, deep, wide chasms. So you can tell the author is talking about this man is reaching the end of his life, and he comes to this deep void. And when he gets to the other side, he turns back and he starts building a bridge. And people are asking him, kind of ridiculing him, what in the world are you doing that for? You're never going to come this way again. Your life is over, basically. And he talks about the people who are coming after him, and how he wants the youth, especially, who are going to be passing that same way, that they might not have the same pitfalls that he did. So really, really powerful poem. It's a poem, so it's really easy to read in class. At least for me, I find poetry is a lot easier to read out loud, especially with students. So we highly recommend you read this one with your students. Make some time in your lesson plans to get this activity in there when you're talking about making connections, because how important it is to be a mentor to those who are coming after you, to make sure that they're not going through the same problems that you went through in your life.
Yeah, I honestly was not prepared for the impact this poem had on me when
Hmm.
I reread it this time, because I've read it before, but it really, that visual of somebody who's already tired. This he's coming towards the end. He's tired, but he
Yep.
takes that time anyway to make things better for the person behind him.
Yeah, and sorry to interrupt, but I have two teenagers in my house and one who's about to be a teenager. So that's one of the things I try to teach them the most is to leave wherever you are, leave it better than where you found it. And how that ties so well into being a mentor. And I just hope that that lesson sticks with my kids, because um, nothing bothers me more than selfishness. Like I want my kids to reach out of themselves and try to serve those around them, and not just be focused on themselves, but think of those around them, especially those who are coming up after them.
Yeah, and honestly, that sentence right there, that is so perfect, Chris, because when we're discussing how to get a mentor and how to connect and how to this is the central part of that, right?
Hmm.
It is all about relationships, making things better for other people, and taking the time to know what that's going to be.
Right.
And it hit me so much, because how easy is it, especially right now, when, as I say to people all the time and energy are very limited commodities right now. We're all tired. We all have less time than we would like to do the things that we need to get done, let alone the things we want to do.
Hmm.
And it taking that time to make things better for other people is so easy not to do. But when you take the time to do that, it opens your world up,
No
and it
doubt.
allows you to have those connections with people outside you, because you're not focused on you. You're not
Right.
selfish.
Yep. Yep. I agree 100%. And so, yeah, some questions you can ask your students are, what we can ask them, what do you do with the path that you're walking on right now? Are you thinking about the people who are coming up behind you or after you? And what about the bridges we cross, and do we make them better? So lots of good conversation that you can have with your students after you read this poem.
Yeah. And that kind of goes into the next story, which is Thank You, Ma'am by Langston Hughes. And honestly, I liked this one better than the poem, because I love the female character in this story. She's amazing. She does not take any slack from anybody.
Yep.
And but from the second that she turned around and she kicked the kid in the butt and grabbed him by the shirt, she cared about what happened to that kid.
Hmm. Which was not the response you would expect at all. So a really good example of not flying off the handle. Like using a bad situation and turning it into something very, very positive, which I think a lot of people struggle with in this day and age. So many people are quick to take offense and immediately start in attack mode, but not, I'm going to get her name right, not Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones. She took that bad opportunity of a kid trying to pickpocket her. She took that situation and turned it into the most positive thing you could have turned it into.
Yeah, and what a difference that made for that kid. And I really, as I was thinking about this, I really think it's really important to impress upon even 14, 13, 14-year-olds in ninth grade. Choose to be a mentor. Choose to be the person that makes the world a little bit better. Really focus on how you can be that mentor for people, yes, younger than you, but even the mentor for people older than you if you need to.
Right.
And sometimes that requires kicking people in the butt, but
Yep.
it also really, requires thinking outside yourself again.
Yeah. And another thing I loved about this story is that she was very attentive. She could tell that this kid, he wasn't evil. He had some needs, and she could recognize that right away. And so she had a very tender heart. She could tell his face needed washing, his hair needed combed. He was hungry. She could tell all of these things the way that she was interacting with him. So again, just how important it is to, like you said, just be kind, look for opportunities to be a mentor. Um, don't be so quick to take offense, and just look for the good in people. And especially as you're looking outward, look for ways that you can help other people as you go through life.
Yeah. And the end, I'm going to spoil it. I have to. I wasn't going to,
Yep.
but I have to. I love at the end when at the beginning she said, why were you stealing from me? And he said, well, I wanted this blue suede shoes. And which I love Elvis, so that but he's I want these blue suede shoes. And she's like, well, you could have just asked. And then at the very end, after she has cleaned him up and fed him and attended to his basic human needs, she gives him the money to buy the shoes. And
Yeah.
previously in the story, it had talked about how she was not well off. She worked long hours. She lived in a one room, but she gave him the money to be able to get what he wanted.
Yeah. And I love at the very end, in possibilities, there are questions after each selection, to help you and your students get them thinking about the lessons that were taught in the selection. And one of the first questions is, do you think the boy's life was changed? Do you think Mrs. Jones changed this young boy's life? And so obviously the story ends, when he's leaving, and all he can get out is thank you before she closes the door. And then it just makes you immediately think, okay, how is this boy's life different now? What is he going to do for the rest of his life because of this interaction he had with this woman? And how amazing that is, that mentors can have that huge impact.
Yeah. So I guess if I had to culminate today, we need to inspire each other to be mentors all the time. For everybody that we run into. How can you help make that person's life better? And sometimes you can't, but wouldn't you rather it be on their end as opposed to you not having done something?
Exactly. Yep.
And it's very, very important as an educator to be able to help provide those mentoring opportunities for your students.
That's true. Yep. They're probably not going to naturally do it themselves. So you as a teacher, I'm getting teacher and mentor squished together.
Teacher.
You as a teacher, it's your job, to help them find those opportunities. So you being the first mentor in the classroom.
Yeah, I love that. We're going to make that a word now, because
Yep.
most of my teachers I've had in my life have been mentors as well.
Yep. With my story. Yep. I agree completely. Teachers are amazing.
So much for having a really short live stream today.
That always happens.
I know. We have such lofty goals, and then we just get so excited about this stuff.
Yep.
So, but something that I would like to encourage you guys to do is to check out our tips webinar coming up. It's April 12th, and that is from 5:30 to 6 o'clock Central Time. And we really like to go into depth on these things. So the that's our best practice highlight, which we're going to be talking about school-wide and getting the community involved in your program. So, how do you find mentors for your students? Let's talk about it on April 12th. And then we also have Tips Tuesday on April 19th, where we will be talking about the traits of those who get ahead. And as a segue on that, we did get another comment in from Tanya. And I really I love this. No interaction is one-sided, so the positive impact you have on others is also results in a positive impact on your own life.
That is so true.
Love it. So, if you have questions, here's our contact information. Make sure that you talk to us. We love talking to you guys. If you're watching this after the fact, please comment on the video as you're watching it, because we will see that and we will comment back. And we hope that you guys have a fabulous day, and we will see you again for our live stream next week.
Thank you. See you all later.